Hey everybody, I am going to be talking about a topic that is highly requested. A lot of you have been reaching out to me with some topic suggestions, and hypochondria is actually high on the list. I've been hearing that a lot of people have been going through this, and I went through it significantly for about 2 years. I was really deep in it. My whole life was consumed by it, and I actually developed a remedy myself. Now I can see why it worked, but I didn't really see why at the time. I just tried something new, and I am hesitant to say cure, but I diminished my symptoms of hypochondria by probably about 85 to 90% in a week, just by doing this one thing that I did. It only felt almost necessary to make a video about this and share it with you all. So without further ado, let's get started. This can apply to any bad habit or vice or OCD-related pattern, but I'm just going to stick with hypochondria because that's what I went through, and this is what worked for me when I was dealing with hypochondria. So a lot of you have probably watched my story. Never really dealt with hypochondria up until I fainted one day, and when I fainted, it brought back a lot of old buried trauma, and in the months after that, I basically started analyzing my body significantly because of the fainting episode when I lost control completely of it. I started analyzing my body significantly. I would pay attention to my symptoms. I would talk to a lot of people. I started recognizing the anxiety coming up, the nausea, my head feeling weird, a head change, and this really started this terrible cycle of me analyzing every single thing that I felt. And I would Google my symptoms, I would self-diagnose. I started believing that I had all these different conditions, like truly believing that I had all of these conditions, and I felt like it in my body. Around this time, I started working at a hospital. So I was working in oncology, trauma, seeing all these different patients with all of these different insane diseases that I had never even heard of, and what they were going through with all these diseases. This was in the heart of when I was dealing with hypochondria. So I was the person that I went to urgent care like every other week, swearing that I had a heart problem or some type of infection, a brain tumor. I swore I had cancer. I believed I had every single type of cancer. I even got a blood pressure cuff, and I would check my blood pressure throughout the day because I believed I had, cardiac issues. I seriously believed that I had all of these things. For those of you that suffer with hypochondria, know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not just something where it's like, they just think they're sick, and you can tell somebody that they're not sick and they'll be better. No, I literally believed every single thing that I would tell myself. So it was like I would feel a weird symptom in my body. I'd Google whatever combination of those symptoms would be. So it was like racing heart, nauseous stomach with weird type, like I would just describe a headache or something. I would combine symptoms together, and I would Google search what they meant, and then some weird condition would come up, and I would read about it, and I would be like, oh my gosh, that's me. I have this. Then I would Google the prognosis and figure out I was gonna die, and I would read the forums with all these other people that had this thing. It was just hell, like pure hell. I'll never forget the time where I was obsessed with checking my blood pressure, and I would check my blood pressure over and over and over, and it got so high. And I'm a very healthy person. Even back then, I always have had healthy blood pressure. And so my blood pressure was never an issue before this period in my life. So I was so stressed out though, that I remember checking my blood pressure, and my blood pressure was like 160 over 110. And I remember crawling around on the floor, feeling so much panic because my heart was racing so fast, being so scared that I had a heart problem that I literally was almost going to puke because I was just like, I swear I have a heart problem. And I went to doctors, I got EKGs, blood work, all these different types of tests, and everything was fine. So I was like, there's something that they are missing. I didn't trust them. I didn't trust anything. I just believed I was dying all the time. This period, I really feel like I didn't have control. I mean, I know if you deal with hypochondria as well, you probably feel like you don't have control. but you honestly have more control and more say in this cycle than you think. I promise, because I'm sitting here on the other side, and now I can see in hindsight everything that I was doing to keep myself in this horrible pattern. So believe in yourself. You have way more control in this than you think that you do. Before I get into the heart of the remedy that this video is about, I want to talk about a few foundational items and some groundwork. I know this is the stuff that people don't really like to hear, but it's been absolutely essential in my healing of a lot of the emotional imbalances that I've dealt with, hypochondria being one of the largest out of everything that I've been through. Diet, hydration, and sleep. These three things are so important to healing mental illness and mental instability and every single type of imbalance that has to do with the brain. This is because inflammation plays a huge part in the imbalances in our brain. There's actually some studies that are showing something called the enteric nervous system, which is actually the brain in your gut, actually speaks to the central nervous system, which is the brain that we all know, not the other way around. There's so much importance in keeping the inflammation down, diet, stress, and all of those things. You need to have the groundwork for your body and your mind to function, or else it won't work. If you're feeding your body with processed crap, cookies and sugar and dairy and a lot of the stuff that clogs your intestines and causes inflammation, there's no way that you are going to see the type of healing that you want, because our bodies are organic. We need to be feeding them with organic, natural things. Inflammation is one of the largest causative factors in any type of chronic illness. This goes with fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, chronic fatigue syndrome, any type of anxiety, hypochondria. It's all rooted in inflammation and how we're managing our diet, how we're managing our stress, how we're sleeping, and how we're hydrating. Hydration is a huge thing. I'm telling you, I can feel anxiety and hypochondria rising when I'm even the slightest bit dehydrated. I realize I lived my life dehydrated for probably 25 years, like severely dehydrated, like most of us are. You ask somebody, do you drink water? And it's like, oh yeah, I drank like a bottle earlier, but no, we should be drinking at least 60 to 80 ounces, I would say a good average to guesstimate for everybody, 60 to 80 ounces per day. I highly doubt that many of us actually do that unless you're conscious with your water drinking, because I know if I'm not conscious about my water drinking, it is very hard to hit that 80-ounce limit without thinking about it. Hydration is absolutely huge, and it has been shown that dehydration actually causes anxiety. Huge. Stay hydrated. And sleep. Sleep is a beast, because you can't really try to sleep better on its own. You almost have to handle other buckets of your life better and more efficiently, so you can clear up all of that congestion before you sleep well. But sleep is very important, and I talk about this in another video, but I believe if you're staying hydrated, if your diet is well, if you're working on stress management, and you have a good amount of activity, that you will be sleeping just fine if all of those other things are aligned. Now that I've talked about the importance of diet, sleep, and hydration, and stress management, of course, we all know that's important for everything. It almost doesn't even need to be talked about. But now that I've talked about that, I will get into the meat of what I discovered worked for me. I would like you all to think of hypochondria as a program. I know it feels like this living, breathing, terrible beast that has control over you, that is just haunting you every single day. At least that's what it felt like for me. But I would like you to just think about it as a computer program. What you need to do, and like I said, this goes for other, OCD-related patterns or bad habits or things like that. So all you need to learn how to do is delete this program, or unprogram this program, if you will. The first step in this is understanding that your hypochondria has a cycle. It has a cycle and it's a loop. So what you're doing is you're trying to curb your anxiety by participating in this cycle. Every cycle is different for everybody, and I'm going to get into my cycle in a second. But what you're doing is you participate in a series of actions or a series of steps It's a loop that you keep running through to curb some sort of anxiety that you're having about your health, the unknown, death, fear, whatever it is. This is just like an endless loop that keeps going and going and going and going and going, and you feel like it's never, ever gonna stop. I get it, but I swear it can stop if you do the work. You need to track your patterns. This can be body checking, Googling symptoms, going to the doctor over and over and over, getting reassurance from friends, getting reassurance from family members, not believing doctors. For me, it was all of the above, but what I found once I started tracking all of these things that I was doing, I found a pattern and a process to what I was doing. So I found the same steps that I was repeating over and over and over in a loop, constantly, with every single occurrence of my hypochondria. It was the same pattern. So I actually wrote down my cycle, and I'm going to share it with you guys. So for me, it was feeling the symptoms first. So I'd feel the symptom come on in my body, whether it be nausea or like a racing heart or whatever I was going through. And then I would do body checking. So I would like check my lymph nodes. I would pay attention to my heart rate. I would like calculate my heart rate. I would look at my skin. If I had any, weird lumps or bumps, I would check myself in every single way possible. Then I would Google about this. So I would collect symptoms. I would collect different symptoms I was going through at one given time, and then I would combine them and Google what those symptoms meant. So I would say, racing heart, nauseous, weird bump on leg, some type of cancer ? Or something like that. And then I would look at what came up. I would make my own conclusions. So I would self-diagnose. So I would read forums, read research online. I would make my own conclusions. I would self-diagnose and say, I have this thing, whatever it is. And I would go through many different cycles of this for many different ailments. Every single day I was probably sitting in my head with maybe like 10 different diseases that I swear that I had. I would make doctor's visits, or I would go to urgent care or the emergency room, whatever that day chose for me. A clean bill of health from doctors every single time. I would not believe the doctors. I would choose to get a second opinion, go somewhere else, go to a different urgent care, or just not believe them. And I would start all over again. It was like this cycle that just kept repeating, and I did not foresee an end. You need to write down your pattern. Pay attention to what is going on with you. What is your exact cycle of symptoms? What are you going through? What is the order? You'll probably find that it's the same thing every single time, so take some time to write that out. Here is where the magic was for me. I went to a counseling session when I was really deep into this, and she said something to me that wasn't directly relating to what I did, but it influenced my decision to do this. I told her that I was going through all this and I would cry all the time, and she was like, okay, this is so great that you're feeling all of this stuff, but what are you doing to bring yourself back up or take yourself out of this cycle? And I was like, nothing. Not doing anything. I'm just letting myself feel everything and sitting in my own swamp of mush. Like, that's literally what I was doing. So I thought about it. I had written out this cycle, and I was like, where can I intervene? This is what comes to the magic. So it's intervening in your cycle. I wrote out my cycle. I just shared it with you guys. And I was like, I need to intervene. Where is the easiest part that I can intervene? And I figured out it was going to be the most objective part of the cycle. Not the body symptom checking, because that's so vague. Like, I can still pay attention to my heart and my mind. There's still kind of that mental aspect to it. I really wanted to intervene on something that was very objective, very physical, something that it was black or white. This stage will be very, very hard. It's going to go against everything that your mind and your body want to do, because it's not what you've known for however long you've been going through hypochondria. It goes against all habits, all patterns, all everything, but I swear that it works. What I did was I took the most objective part of my cycle, and that was Googling the symptoms. I was like, I know that I can stop myself from doing that. It is a physical action. It requires me physically going onto my computer or physically going onto my phone and I can stop that. I can stop it in its tracks. I can prevent myself from doing that. I believed that I could. What I did was every single time that I felt the urge to go Google a symptom, I made a tally. And it's very interesting what you'll see in my tallies. So the first day, I think throughout the whole week, or it's actually 5 days. So throughout the whole 5 days, I think I gave in maybe 1 or 2 times only, which is pretty remarkable. But the first day, I had about 30 or so impulses to Google, but I didn't. Maybe once in that day. Like I told you, 1 or 2 times throughout the week, but those are insignificant. So the first day I had about 30 impulses to Google, and I was not feeling very good. So I did my tallies, I went along with my day, I went on. Day 2 increased. So I felt more of the impulse. I had about, I want to say 50 or so impulses to Google. Still didn't give in, maybe once, but again, insignificant. Third day, even more. I had about 70, 75, something like that, impulses to Google. Went along. Fourth day, absolute, by far the worst day of the process. I had about 130 to 150, something in that range. I don't have the numbers in front of me. Something like upwards of 150 impulses to Google. And you can just picture that. If you're awake for about, let's just say, how long are we awake? 14 hours, 15 hours, something like that. 150 impulses to Google. it's like every 5 to 10 minutes you're taking a break because you have an impulse. It was crazy. I felt so stressed, so anxious. I wanted to pull my hair out. It was like I was at the peak of what my body wanted and the habits wanted and the demons wanted and the illness wanted. But I stayed strong and I kept doing my tallies. I woke up the 5th day. I think I had 5 impulses to Google that day. And then from that day on, I have not freaking Googled or had an impulse to Google anything, or checked my body, or went to the doctors, or had an impulse to go to the doctors, or think I'm sick, or think I have any weird illnesses. Nothing. I probably have a thought here or there, I don't really feel good. What is that? Am I getting sick? And I'll probably take some vitamins and I'll feel better. And I usually feel better, and that's it. I like to believe, I've researched exposure therapy and I'm familiar with it, and I know they say that it works a lot for OCD, so this is very similar. This was specific for hypochondria, and I wanted to share in hopes that it would help anybody dealing with hypochondria. Now, obviously I'm not a doctor, not a medical professional, so I really don't want this to be taken as some hard medical advice, this is the answer. But it worked for me, and I'm curious if it will work for other people. It was I just had, I told you, it was like a computer program. It was I had this program in my mind that was just broken and on repeat over and over and over again. And I hijacked it. I stopped it. It was going, it was a loop, and I put a wrench in it, at one part that I felt power to do so. And it worked. This is not a perfect science. I don't know if it will take a week for you, 2 weeks, 3 days, 5 months. I don't know. But I am so curious to see if it works for anybody else, because it worked. It was so powerful for me. And I've seen, I swear I would not call myself a hypochondriac anymore. I definitely dealt with it, and I'm still hyperfixated on my health. I prioritize my health, but I would not say I'm a hypochondriac anymore. And I was deep in hypochondria for about 2 years, just deep. As deep as I feel like somebody can get, thinking I was dying every single day, every single minute of the day. Just one reminder, have love for yourself in the process. That has been a huge learning lesson for me as I go through this journey of finding myself and spirituality and all that. You have to have love for yourself, because part of the problem is all of the self-guilt and self-shame that we are giving ourselves through this entire healing process. If you actually paid attention to all the negative self-talk in your head, it's alarming. It's alarming for me. It continues to freak me out when I really pay attention to how much negative self-talk I'm giving myself daily. And I feel like I've improved significantly over the past couple of years. So I can't even imagine what I was doing back when I was going through hypochondria and all that other stuff. I would love to hear from you if you, 1, deal with hypochondria, and 2, if you actually try this method and if it works or if it doesn't, or whatever happens for you. I would love to hear your thoughts. So definitely leave me a comment or email, reach out on IG, whatever. I think that's it for me today. Thank you so much for subscribing, thank you for subscribing. Hit that subscribe button. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for tuning in, for your support. My community keeps growing. It still blows me away every single day. I log on and I have more followers and more subscribers, and I really feel like people are absorbing the messages that I'm giving, and the stuff is really sinking and resonating with a lot of people, and it just gives me a lot of comfort, because I felt so alone for a long time with a lot of the thoughts that I've had and the things that come up for me, and there's so much comfort in like-mindedness. You know, I don't like to fall too deep into like-mindedness. I think there's so much beauty in hearing other perspectives, but the like-mindedness is definitely a comfort feeling for me. So I really appreciate all the resonance and all of the DMs and comments and just beautiful things that you all have been saying to me lately. So it's really lifting me up. So I really appreciate it. Thank you. But anyway, thanks again for watching, and I will see you all next time.